then you didn't have all the matches on TV. So the matches that weren't on TV, basically, if they come to your town, you weren't going to see that anywhere else. So often those programs would always be, they'd always be made, and they'd kind of, they'd go up to about, as minimal as a month to almost 3 months sometimes, depending. So you often got paired up with one of the guys. If you was champion, it was slightly different, but in most cases, this was the norm. And there was always an A house show and a B house show. And normally the B house show would have the Intercontinental Champion on it, and the A show would have the WWF show on it. So at this title on it. So at this point, Razor and Diesel are headlining these nights because they've got the Intercontinental belt there. So he's he's working on top but on the B show, of course. Timeline fact now: the beginning of Bob Backlund's turn will start airing this coming weekend when they air Backlund attacking Brett after losing to him in the WWF title match in syndication. So it's worth pointing that out because of what happens a little bit further down the line there. Also at this time in August, they're in Germany, all over the place here, and again Razor is working that match, beating Diesel by DQ. And on August on Raw we have Michaels. Meltzer reports Michaels was tremendous in his first match back in months, beating Razor Ramon when Diesel kicked Ramon in the face behind the ref's back. This match got quite a high rating from Meltzer on Raw, so it's almost like Diesel, resumes his role back as the bodyguard. Now Michaels is back, but of course Diesel is the Intercontinental Champion. That's worth pointing out. August 15th now from '94, and Walter Payton, it says here, will be in Razor Ramon's corner to go. Oh, so this is So he's in there. So I think he's like an NFL player, but he's kind of going up against Shawn Michaels, who is going to be in Diesel's corner at SummerSlam. So they're kind of like reverse roles in for this, and it's Razor Ramon versus Diesel at SummerSlam, which certainly points towards a title change, reports Meltzer. Ramon doing the job on television for Michaels also leads one to believe that there will definitely be a title change. So that's what's going on there. Now, Matt, this SummerSlam, I've got to say, when I looked at some of the matches that were on this card, I kind of thought, is this a SummerSlam I just don't go back and watch, or have I forgot about this? Because it seemed like there was quite a few kind of good matches going on here, but sometimes they do look better on paper than they actually are. I think it's definitely worth pointing that much out, but it just seems like one of those ones I might have forgot. But yeah, there were other matches that they had. The 1-2-3 Kid up against Jarrett on that one, and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know. Do you remember SummerSlam '94 that much, Matt, at all?
No, I mean, I've got to say it's one of those ones that passed me by a little bit. I don't know whether it was that whole reputation that we were just talking about just now, where like the business wasn't really doing so well, so maybe some people associate that with like lower interest in the product at that time. But I think that might have been the case for me. I think I just haven't seen this one that many times.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of these pay-per-views numerous times. It's just something told me to skip past that one.
Yeah, that's exactly how I thought about it when I looked through this, and I thought maybe that's why I don't have the whole Domino's pizza shoved in my face, because I just haven't looked at it enough. Okay, fun fact here from in August here: Bob Backlund will no longer sign autographs or talk to fans as he's taking his turn, which, by the way, apparently was his own suggestion. Seriously, Bob turned 10 years too late, reports Meltzer, and he's kayfabing 10 years too late as well. They will be pushing an Undertaker versus Yokozuna feud for post SummerSlam, as Jim Cornette did an interview and said Yokozuna wasn't afraid of anyone, And then Shawn Michaels brought up Undertaker. So apparently, Meltzer reports that's exactly what's going to happen there. Matt, I just want to talk about that just briefly. The fact that they had Bob Backlund not doing those signings I kind of wish they would do that more today. But I mean, obviously, that's kind of how you play the heel, I suppose. You kind of have to go away from that. And also, it's worth pointing out that I was doing a bit of research on all this, and guys that were heels, Matt, they didn't get T-shirts. Like, you couldn't buy merchandise too many times for wrestlers that were heels because, it kind of defeats the object. And I was kind of thinking about it more and more in this day and age. And I was thinking, is that why this is happening so much? Because they just can't wait to sell this stuff. I don't know. What do you make of that, of guys? Because I know back in the day as well, guys didn't always like being heels because they couldn't always get as much paycheck as a guy that was face and selling a load of merch. What was your sort of take on that, and how they kind of hid and kind of protected it a little better back then, I suppose?
Yeah, it's kind of like one of the situations when you look back at how it used to be, and you kind of think, oh, those were the good old days when the hero would get the cheers and the bad guy would get the boos, and it was a family environment,
Mm-hmm.
and you knew who you wanted to win and who was supposed to win.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just so complicated these days, isn't it? It's almost like if you don't turn heel, then you're not cool anymore.
Yeah.
Like we saw with the John Cena effect, that was the whole deal with that, wasn't it? People just couldn't wait to see him turn heel, but it was just not happening, for years and years. He was not going to turn heel.
Yeah, another fun fact here from August 22nd. WWF got a mention in TV Guide this week, listed as number 2 in a story which was on the success of Baywatch. They're as successful as them on TV, WWF Wrestling, as far as pleasures on television. So they're doing well there, at least on the TV Guide side of things. Like the ratings are still doing well. It's just a whole case of a few shows hit and miss. I think a lot of that, I will say, probably come down to the fact of the whole steroid trial. Not only that, but also the fact that there was a whole World Cup going on at the time. And I know how popular that got when it went there. The Heart Attack Tour as well, the house shows after SummerSlam, will be Brett defending against Neidhart, Undertaker versus Yokozuna in casket matches, the Head Shrinkers defending against none other than Shawn Michaels and Diesel. So at this point, Matt, they are already kind of looking to pair Michaels and Diesel up as a proper tag team now, as sort of post SummerSlam goes. I want to get into Raw taping just before SummerSlam, and Michaels and Diesel worked as a team. This airs after SummerSlam, Meltzer reports, because Diesel didn't wear the belt. Just when we talk about protecting things, this sort of thing would happen. I guess this is the issue, Matt, with taping the stuff, knowing it's got to come out elsewhere, that you couldn't really protect it to the level you kind of needed to at this point. When things like this were happening, Diesel not coming out with his IC title was a pretty much given to what was going to happen live that week on SummerSlam, I guess. Does that sort of, I guess that sort of thing would have spoiled a lot of the surprises, Matt, if you'd have been one in that audience and then you're going into SummerSlam almost knowing what's going to happen here on this one. There's been loads of those sort of times, Matt, where that's happened quite a few times, hasn't it? In the wrestling, TNA is quite famous for it these days.
Yeah, it is kind of a letdown, especially when you're looking forward to an event and everything. And for some people, they're going there just to see that guy, and then it kind of takes out that excitement over which way you think the match is going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, SummerSlam 94 then takes place on the 29th of the 8th as the first ever held at the grand opening of the 23,000 seat United Center, a state-of-the-art facility in Chicago. Unlike previous pay-per-view shows over the past year, plus where the WWF would announce 1 week ahead of time the live event being sold out. So this is quite a big deal, I suppose. It's a brand new venue, and WWF are getting to go in there. The headline angle is The Undertaker versus The Undertaker. That was definitely out there. Of course, Ramon up against Diesel, with Michaels in his corner. And yeah, I mean it's a big deal here. SummerSlam, they've got the sellout crowd as well. Meltzer reports, and it all goes well. There's Bam Bam Bigelow in action. Now, when I talk about this card, I mean this is why I wanted to put these matches in. But it's Bam Bam Bigelow up against IRS. Bam Bam Bigelow and IRS, who beat the Head Shrinkers that night. Alondra Blaze is also in action that night. But third out, Matt, is the match between Intercontinental Champion Diesel up against Razor Ramon. And, of course, he's got the NFL player Peyton in his corner. And, of course, Diesel has Shawn Michaels. What did you make of this match, Matt, at SummerSlam between these two?
Well, I didn't really mind it too much. I thought it was all right, and the pacing was fair. But I would say it didn't really get me gripped. It didn't really have that classic feel about it. And I think Diesel was a little bit sluggish in this match. I don't know whether he had any injuries or any problems coming into this, but he wasn't really ready to unleash himself upon it.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. Like on paper, you think this is a good match. It's Intercontinental, and you think of where Razor's come off of, WrestleMania 10 and all the rest of it. Diesel dropping the belt at this point, Matt. Do you feel that was like a sort of body blow on him, or obviously now knowing he's going to be paired up with Shawn Michaels after, is it still going in the right direction at this point for Diesel?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's all going in the right direction. I guess the Intercontinental belt can sometimes be used as a tool to get someone across a bit better, and I think it served its purpose. Mm-hmm. And, if he's going to move on to other things, then he's got that exposure, and he's out there now, and he can go on to achieve something else. Absolutely.
Meltzer reports gives this matchup just under 3 stars. So it's neither bad or fantastic really from their point of view at the time. But it's not a bad outing. I mean, again, he's going out third on the card. But other matches from the card, Matt, we had Tatanka up against Luger, Mabel and Jarrett, Brett against Owen, of course, in the famous cage match, and of course Undertaker versus Undertaker. So it was quite a packed card, and you'd argue that it was maybe as good as WrestleMania 10, apart from the whole ladder match between Michaels that would have been on there. It certainly would have given it a run for its money. But interesting, and also interesting that they headlined with Undertaker versus Undertaker and not the WWF Championship at the time. Matt, this is really interesting when I read this back, and don't know what you think of this, but this goes to show you some of the clout that WWF had in New York. This past week, Madison Square Garden cancelled a WCW show scheduled for the 26th of November, and WWF will be getting the date instead, which left quite a few furious people within WCW, which had expected to draw the largest house show gate of the year on the day of Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair as the headliner. Apparently, WWF got wind and produced a contract which stated they had a right of first refusal on any wrestling dates in the main arena, and were exercising their right. What do you make of that, Matt? I mean, that's just like, well, you're not having that after all. You're WCW, you're expecting the biggest gate. I mean, that's a huge match, Flair and Hogan, the match that people wanted to see in the WWF. They're going into the backyard of WWF, so to speak, and WWF, they pulled that one out of the hat. I guess that's just the stroke that they had at the time, being that they were based originally from New York, Matt.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I mean, how can they just turn around and just pick favourites like that. I mean, I wouldn't say I could imagine WWE would be really, really annoyed, and I couldn't blame them for that.
Mm-hmm.